Welcome into I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. This is our NFL Divisional Round reaction show. We were been off for a little bit. I had a wedding. Tyson had some personal stuff. We're back. We're ready. We're in the saddle, talking football, and what a way to jump right back into it, because this divisional round, Tyson, had upsets, it had some drama, it had anger on social media, more referee things. The Eagles are back. We're breaking it all down. But as we kind of exhale, we're recording this on Tuesday, had some time to think about everything. What did you think about this weekend and kind of the teams who were there, some of the winners, some of the losers, all that big picture stuff?
Well, this is something that I shared. I actually told my girlfriend before the game, and it was something I would have said last week if we did a show. I wasn't able to make it, so we had to push. Sorry about that to everybody. But the divisional round is the ultimate round of football. It's the one I look forward to the most, because the wild card round, especially now with the seventh team getting in, it's a little bit of quantity over quality. And then as you get into the championship games, it's quality over quantity. This is the perfect mesh where these really were like the 8 best teams left in football, and they get to play each other. You get 2 days of it. It was fantastic. But Brad, it also comes with some upsets that we're going to get into, or really just one, almost two out there in the snow in Philly, but really just the one. And then, now we move into, like, this is really the nut cutting time, because if you make it to the divisional round, you had a heck of a season. If you were in the Elite Eight of the NFL and you lose there, it is, for everybody but maybe Detroit, basically, and Baltimore from this round. It's like, well, it was a good season, but like, you made it all the way to the divisional round. But if you lose in the NFC title game, the sting hurts, right? Or the AFC Championship game, you lose in the Super Bowl, you don't forget about those things. So this was the perfect. The pressure's on, but not quite in the same way. And we got more games. So the divisional round is my favorite.
And Tom Brady was saying that too. He's like, this is the best round for football fans. This is the best weekend for NFL fans. And I agree. The 2 championship games are awesome, but it's like, oh man, is that it? There's only 2 games. And this is
2
like
weeks?
You said. Right. Yeah, then you're done. That's the most disappointing part. But this is 2 games Saturday that are awesome, 2 games Sunday that are awesome. It's like, whoa, now we're getting some close to finality. And so let's jump into the one that closed the weekend. That was Ravens-Bills, and the massive showdown between two of whoever's going to win the MVP is either going to be Lamar or Josh Allen. I think it should be Josh Allen. I think kind of the momentum is going towards Lamar at the close. And this was a kind of a typical game that we've seen by both players in the playoffs at certain points of their career. And so the Bills win 27-25, ended on a dropped 2-point conversion by Mark Andrews that would have tied things up about 1:30. So, Allen could have gone down and scored a touchdown or scored a field goal, game winner, all that stuff. Not great conditions there in Buffalo. But Tyler Bassett hit a tough one previously. So there would have been a chance for the Bills to go back down there and score. Lamar was bad in the first half, was kind of Superman in the second half. We'll talk about him personally in here in a little bit. But what did you think about this game? Because, this was the marquee matchup of the weekend, right? And so what did you think? It came down to the wire, but what was your thoughts on this?
Well, it was funny because this was like I had said before, that, like, if the Eagles lose, this is going to suck, because this is the game I want to watch the most, and I'm going to be in a bad mood. Luckily, I was in a good mood for this football game, but this was kind of the classic, like, social media and everybody has jumped on this one as the one. This is going to be the biggest game. It ended up living up to the hype, but that wasn't until the end of the football game. To start the game, it was like, wow. Baltimore made that look easy to go down there and score a touchdown. Lamar Jackson, great play. Rashad Bateman wide open, boom, boom. And then Buffalo kind of imposed their will and did Buffalo Bills things. And it's hard, to separate the team from last year and previous years to the one that they put on the field this season. And the Bills haven't had a ton of primetime games, so I'm not blaming people for not paying for YouTube TV and 7 other streaming services to catch a lot of these Bills games. But this is who Buffalo is. And Josh Allen did a great job of just taking what was in front of him, which is, for some reason, not the metric we judge all quarterbacks by, but I thought he did a great job of that this weekend. And then again, they can run the football with anybody. And so it was another game where it was like, oh, Buffalo's doing things we're not used to seeing Buffalo do. Yes, that's what they do. That's who this 2024 Buffalo Bills team is. The defense was great. They came up with the massive turnover, really a 14-point swing there on the Von Miller fumble recovery return. But like the overall theme for me, Brad, was this is another game that Todd Monken and John Harbaugh showed up and didn't want to run the football.
It was pretty crazy, man. I mean, Derrick Henry, 16 carries, 84 yards, 5.3 yards a carry. He had a touchdown. Justice Hill, he was a game breaker, man. 6 carries, 50 yards, brought some juice, 8.3 a pop. And Lamar, this is going to be something we'll talk about here, but 6 carries, 39 yards. It was 6.5 a pop, but 30 carries overall, 176, almost 6 yards a carry. It's just, that's been the theme here. It's so strange. And like why we're getting to this point with the Ravens. I know Todd Monken, I don't know if it's like, oh, I want to kind of showcase my offense and, Lamar wants to be a passer. I don't know what's going on there, but it's been 2 years in a row or the lack of willingness, not the ability. They've had the ability to run the football on the Chiefs and on the Bills, but the lack of willingness to put your head down and run the football with an offensive line that is better at run blocking and pass blocking has been shocking. And on the flip side, you said it well. This was a game by the Buffalo Bills that was managed extremely well. And that we can't say that under Sean McDermott very often when it gets to these points, it gets to these games against marquee opponents. Josh Allen, 16-22, just 127, right? But he had 10 carries, just 20 yards, but 2 touchdowns. It was great in the red zone, got him into the end zone. You talk about their ability to run the football. James Cook continues to be the difference maker. 17 carries, 67 yards, so just 4 yards a pop, really. But the consistency with which they're able to run. Ty Johnson coming in, Ray Davis coming in, 4 carries, 29 yards, a touchdown. 3-headed monster now for this Buffalo Bills team, Tyson, who 2 years ago we're talking about being finesse, and that's not the case anymore. So I thought this was a real kind of juxtaposition on one side where the Ravens used to have the identity. We're going to be physical. We're going to run. That's what we know we're going to do. And all of a sudden with the Bills are like, well, we don't know if we want to be the physical team or if we want to throw it around. Well, now they have the identity. And this is 2 years in a row where the Ravens have fallen off from theirs, at least what we thought it was going to be. And that's why we went out and got Derrick Henry in the first place.
This was a Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen game that was won by defense and not turning the football over against a Harbaugh Ravens team. This is we're so used to these two things being flipped, but this was a great example. And really every game that we're going to talk about was an example of when it comes to January and February in the NFL, if you don't turn the football over, your chances go from 50% at kickoff to win this football game to like 75. And Baltimore lost the game on these turnovers. The Rams lost the game on their turnovers. Jared Goff threw 1 million interceptions and they lose the game. Like, this is just the way the playoffs work. And it's funny for a guy that has been chastised by everybody for not being able to take care of the football, that Josh Allen just turns it another performance where he says, I'm going to do what was needed of me today, and I'm walking out of here with a win. And look, there is like a weird thing with the divisional round where when you win the game, it feels almost like you just won the NFC or AFC championship game and you're going to the Super Bowl. They got to do it again. And we'll talk about that. But this was what we expected, I think, between the two of us here on this show. But we got to talk about Mark Andrews, dude. Like, this sucks. I love Mark Andrews. This can't be the way this whole thing ends for him.
It was tough to see, man. And you kind of look on the other side, and likely this was another breakout game. 4 catches, 73 and a touchdown, was explosive. This is a guy that you've been on for a long time. We loved him coming out of Coastal. You've been pounding the table for him. We said when Mark Andrews got hurt, and it was really the likely show, we probably thought that should have been the exit ramp. Then Andrews kind of takes his place, and Lamar loves him. We know all that stuff. And it's not like he was bad on the box score, 5 for 61, but he had the fumble and he had the drop. That was unfortunate. And the whole thing were like, well, you can't be critical. We can't criticize him. Yeah, of course you can. Now, the death threats thing that he's probably getting right now, that's a step too far. Like, grow up on that stuff. Like, that's completely ridiculous. But he should be chastised. You know why? His team, his coachings are doing the same thing. Like, when they're putting on the film, like, dude, you got to catch the ball. So we could all sit here and say, you got to catch the ball. He knows that. You got to hold on to the football, be stronger with it. He knows that. And so that's the reality of playing sports. You're going to get criticized. That was a bad showing by one of the all-time great Ravens. Cost him a chance to potentially play for a Super Bowl. But Tyson, that's playoff football. And we're going to talk about the quarterback here soon. Under this iteration of the Ravens, that's what seems to be happening a lot.
They're always this close, brother. They are always an inch away, whether it is hosting the Kansas City Chiefs and deciding to run the football 8 times a year ago in the AFC Championship game, or if it's some of these Lamar Jackson superhero performances in the wild card round, just to show up and look like you did in the first half. This version of the Baltimore Ravens is a media darling and a paper tiger. This is a team that everyone but in the middle of the season, Baltimore is the best team. Like, they are by far the best team, and I thought that they were the best team too. And then Philadelphia went on the road and put belt to ass, and all of a sudden I was like, well, I don't know if the Ravens are as good as we thought they are, because the Eagles are, the best team in the NFC. And then all of a sudden they win some more games to end the season, and it's like, well, they have the number one defense and the number one rushing offense. What is anybody going to do with this team? Sometimes, all the time, actually, stats don't tell the full story, especially not counting stats. And I think that that's something, this Baltimore Ravens team, it's not their fault that they rack up these insane numbers, but people are guilty of looking at the box score at the end of the game and going, wow, Lamar had another 300-yard passing day. He ran for 70. Derrick Henry had 120. And the defense was awesome. Well, that's a byproduct sometimes of who you're playing. When you get the Browns twice and you get the Steelers twice and some of these other things, like, you're going to look good. And then you run into a bully. And we're used to the Baltimore Ravens being the bully, right? We still have the images of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs and some of these guys in our head. This team wants to play physical until the game starts, and then they want to call it soft. And I think that that's the biggest issue with this team. You don't have a 6'4", 245-pound running back in the backfield who just finally starts to heat up and then abandon the run that early in the fourth quarter. I understand the game script was negative for them at that point. That's how they create some of these explosives. Like, you have a home run hitter, a guy that literally, Derrick Henry had 49 yards. And then in a blink of an eye, he had 79. And it was like, oh, the train has left the station. It is time to feed him the football. And then he didn't touch it again. And now it's another long off season of questions that Baltimore is going to put a Band-Aid over. We're going to have the same discussion about them in the middle of next season. They are the best team in the NFL. Lamar Jackson's going to win MVP. Look at all these things that they're doing. And then the playoffs are going to start, and they're going to turn the football over. They're not going to be detail-oriented. The special teams that we all love is going to suck again. That's another reason why they lost this football game. It's getting to the point, man. I say this all the time, but the Ravens got to show me now. Like, at this point, like, the goodwill of the past is gone. This is a team that shows up small in these moments, and until they get over the hump, I'm just going to believe they can't.
And that, let's bring us into Lamar then, because the story is another playoff loss, and I'm seeing Dan Orlovsky. Well, if you think this game's on Lamar Jackson, then you're a loser, brother. I'm sorry. The fumble was bad, and the interception was bad. And that's the sting with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Tyson, he hadn't had a multi-turnover game all season. Gets into the playoffs, and the biggest game of the year. Well, here you go. Here's the warts again. Oh, Lamar Jackson's all out here, and it's fun in the regular season. He's just faster than everybody. Oh, he's passing the ball now. Like you said, like, look at these 300-yard games he has against Jacksonville and against the horrible Raiders, just the bad teams. And it's like, okay, fine. Let's wait. And you're kind of sitting there. Okay, let's see. Come on, Lamar. This is the time against the Bills. Let's go for it. And you have a bad first half. And you're the reason why the team's losing at halftime. And yes, he put on the cape in the second half, and it was really good. It was like, wow, Lamar Jackson almost did it. But that doesn't just erase the first half. Like, you can't think that way. And I think that people who are doing that, and we love Orlovsky. I think he's a good analyst. I love how he breaks down films, but I think he's getting to the point where, dude, it's fine just to say Lamar Jackson needs to be better. You know why? Because he's saying that, and the coaches are saying that, and the players in the locker room are saying, you know what, we didn't do enough to win. This is sports. It's okay. You can be critical. You can call out the guy because he knows it. Everybody knows it in that locker room. They weren't good enough, the Baltimore Ravens weren't, to win that game. And Lamar Jackson wasn't good enough to win that game today. Now, if he didn't turn the ball over, Tyson, he didn't have the interception, the fumble, and it still was this result, sure, you could kind of point elsewhere. But the reality is, if he didn't have the fumble and if he didn't have the interception, they wouldn't have been in this situation. They probably would have won. And this is another thing. So Derrick Henry getting the ball 16 times on a carry, that's a Todd Monken thing. Lamar Jackson running the ball 6 times when he's averaging 6.5 per pop, that's a Lamar Jackson thing.
Got to go.
And it's getting old here that, oh, I want to showcase I'm a passer. Well, you can showcase all you want, but this isn't freaking the Elite 11 camp. This is the playoffs. It's just time to do what it takes to win. And then when you look on the other side, Josh Allen could have said, oh, I'm not at 200 yards. I'm just going to take shots and throw the ball down the field. No, we're going to win this game. I'm going to be smart. I'm not going to turn it over. I'm going to run. I'm going to hand it off. I'm going to do the right things to win the game so that we can go play for a Super Bowl. And that's the difference between the two here, Tyson. And I will say this, and I'll throw it to you and kind of give your thoughts on Lamar because you're a bigger believer in him as a quarterback than I am. Not saying that I'm not. I like Lamar Jackson, but I think the way we talk about him here, because I think he's going to win another MVP, and that would be his third. And we are now in rare air when you have 3 MVPs.
We've been in rare air.
We're going to talk. We're going to be all of a sudden. It's not Lamar Jackson, fun little prospect from Louisville who took over for Joe Flacco, and woo, this is a new era. Talking about a 3-time MVP winner. We're going to be talking about a guy who has minimal success in the playoffs. I mean, what, one marquee win, really? At this point in his career? I'll say this. If he does win MVP, which I'm expecting to, now I'll take it back. If he only has 2, it's still multi-timer. But if he has 3 MVPs, Tyson, I don't think he ever wins another one again if he doesn't have success in the playoffs. Because you can't just keep looking at stuff in the regular season and being like, God, this guy's so valuable. The voters know what's going on here. They know that Peyton Manning won X MVPs, Tom Brady won X MVPs, Dan Marino. You can't just keep giving it to this guy when there's just no success. Joe Montana, with all the Super Bowls. Steve Young. Like, at a certain point, we have to see you go win a championship. Got it, like you said, got to show it at this point now. And so I want to hear kind of your thoughts on Lamar because you've been pounding the table for him for a while.
Yeah, I love Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson. And it's an unfortunate byproduct of it's not, people are like, oh, this is a symptom of our society. This is the way it works. Like, this is the way you go back and find a newspaper clipping from 1945 that will tell you like Steve Van Buren came up short in a playoff game, something like that. Look, one of these two guys was going to lose, and one of them was probably going to get this label. They're going to get the banner at the bottom of our show. It could have said Josh loses again, and it might in a week, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. This was just another, like, it feels to me when I watch him in the playoffs a little bit, he presses like everything, like, to start the games, and he doesn't find the flow and the rhythm of the game that seems to come naturally to him more so than most other really football players in the entire NFL. Like, when he plays Miami in week 6, he comes out ready to roll and he's already in rhythm. And it's tough, especially in some of these playoff environments. I mean, this is a kid from Florida. So when you go up to Western New York, it's going to be a little cold and chilly, but that's what you signed up for. That's the NFL. And the other guys have to play in that too. With the multi-time MVP thing, it already is a bit, it's just like, I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve either one of these 2 MVP trophies that he has, and he deserves a third one if he gets it. Like, he had an insane season, but the stink is there, and he's going to get a lot more negative comments because, like, oh, Lamar Jackson's only a running back. He's only a running back. He's only a running back. And then that whole thing got flipped so far on its head that now he can do no wrong. And all we're trying to do is point out the fact that he doesn't seem to be able to beat Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, these guys when it counts in the AFC, where all your premier quarterbacks in the NFL reside, basically. You got to go through all of them. And this is something that he's come up short doing. Another season where we're going to say, hey, I think they need a new pass catcher. They need somebody else to be able to do some of these things for this team. And they're going to go out there and they're going to try to get one. But I don't have any faith in this room that it's going to be Devontae Adams. It's going to be Willie Snead again, something like that. And it's unfortunate because I think he's one of the most talented overall football players I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, like, this is why we give pushback sometimes on, like, not everything goes on the quarterback. And Lamar Jackson was great to end that football game, but you can't only talk about the last 30 minutes. It's a 60-minute football game, and if he was perfect for the first 30, they're not even in a position where it matters, right? And then we're sitting on here and we're going, Josh Allen only threw for 130 yards. Like, that's bad in this spot. But he won the game, and that's what counts at this time of year. Lamar Jackson's got to learn that he's 3-5 in the playoffs, Brad. Like, he's 3-5. He hasn't won multiple playoff games in the season, and you want this guy to go win a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, that's the thing. And after I thought I was fair in my comments, and Tyson was too, I'm just going to say something unfair. Lamar Jackson's the James Harden of the NFL.
Whoa.
That's where we are, right? I mean, come on.
I mean, what he's Rockets Harden at least.
Rockets Harden for sure.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, he's putting up all these triple doubles. It's empty calorie stats with Lamar Jackson, folks. I mean, he doesn't guard anybody. No, I mean, it's one of those things where. And lastly, I guess on Lamar, since you brought it up, in big games, dude, he doesn't use his legs the same way. Like he just doesn't take off the same way. It was something earlier this season. He said his own mother said something to him after the Eagles game, like, "Hey, you got to take off with the football." And then, when the moment got big, he was able to throw for a lot of these first downs and touchdowns. And maybe if Mark Andrews doesn't fumble that ball, Lamar Jackson runs in a 40-yard touchdown, following it up. But we'll never know because Mark Andrews fumbled it, but we don't have any data that says Lamar Jackson in the playoffs is equally effective as a runner as he is as a thrower, like we do with the regular season.
Yep, that's the main thing. And so, like you said, we're going to be the same place next year with the Ravens. It's freaking Groundhog Day with that franchise. That's the
9 Pro Bowlers.
Yeah, that's the sad state, Tyson. That's where we're at. So a team who always gets it done, though, the Chiefs, man. They do it again. They beat the Texans 23-14. And I will say this, because Tyson's not on social media, I have never seen vitriol towards one team and the officiating crew and towards the state of the affairs that took place in here like I did. I mean, I think even if you're a Chiefs fan, if you're being honest with yourself, you're being like, let's be self-aware what's going on here. I think you can kind of sit there and say I'm a little uncomfortable with some of the calls that were made on our behalf. And that's, you're a fan, short for fanatic for a reason, right? Like, you're gonna go for your team, and I'm seeing all these guys. Well, actually, we get the most penalties called in us. And it's not just about that. It's situations and about how it looks and the optics. And that was bad optics. I mean,
which one?
Patrick Mahomes running around and then diving at the end and then barely getting touched. That's a 15-yarder, getting a little clip in the helmet. Oh, by letter of the law, and that's a foul. Oh my God, is that what we're gonna do? Then every single time that the Chiefs do anything, it should be an offensive flag because they're false starting and the guy's lined up as a running back. Like, what are we? And the holding penalties. It's so absurd. If that's going to be the debate or that's going to be the pushback, and then you got Lamar, and then you got Patrick Mahomes diving like he's a freaking Neymar, the soccer player on the sideline trying to draw a 15-yarder. It was absurd. With that said, Tyson, they did something that's never been done in the history of the NFL. I mean, I think the teams were 49-0 when they had more. The other team had more turnovers and more yards, or this difference, and all this other voodoo crap that you can point to, and the Chiefs won again. And it wasn't just they won again. Tyson, they almost won by double digits against an upstart Texans team. And, I mean, what else is there to say, really? I mean, it's just somebody's going to have to beat these guys, and they have to do it not by clipping them. Like, you got to go there and decapitate them. Like, it's got to be like Wolverine, right? Like, they regenerate. Like, they get slit. Oh, okay. They just grow the new arm. Oh, we're bleeding out. No, it was cauterized. You got to go and decapitate these guys if you're going to beat them. We'll preview it. Can the Bills do it? We'll see. But that's where we're at with the Chiefs. When they lost to the Bucs, how'd they do it? That defensive line ate up that offensive line. They just destroyed. Like, they decapitated that offense, right? When, they lost to the Bengals a few years ago. How do they do it? That was kind of a little bit more of a clip, but, at the end, Burrow was ice, right? Like, on the way, just at the end, just boom, bullet right through the head. So we're looking at this thing again. Like, how do they keep doing it? It's because nobody is able to just go out there and just absolutely destroy them. And that's where we're at with the Chiefs, man. It's really uncanny how they continue to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically like the team version of like 98 Randy Moss. I'm leaving. Like, unless you could, like, this has got to be, multi-scores before you even start thinking, that you've got these guys put away. The other part, like, yeah, the calls are just, they're getting to the point where they're insane. They've been a little bit insane. Some of them, I mean, the one I always think about is Sauce Gardner at the end, that Jets game a couple years ago, but there's so many.
Wait, that's the one you always think of? Not the one that cost us our second Super Bowl?
No, I mean, I saw the other angle. He grabbed it. But I just, like, there's tons of them, and there's tons of data. My two things, I guess I would say, one, they also don't make mistakes. And so, again, just as we were talking about with Josh Allen, it's really hard to beat a really good team. I mean, we're talking about these guys like they suck. I'm listening to some of these guys pregame. Oh, the Chiefs are gettable and blah, 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 blah. They went 15-2 for a reason, everybody. And one of those losses was in the game that they didn't care about at all. And to be honest with you, they were like, hey, we let Bo Nix in the playoffs. We don't have to worry about Burrow getting in here. Let's lose by 40. I don't care how this works out. The other thing, Chiefs fans, Just embrace the hate. It's way more fun, to be the heel rather than to be the guy. Well, actually, we didn't get a holding call for the, like, you sound like Ohio State fans. You got the best players. You got the best team. Shut up. Just embrace the fact that everybody hates you, and then you'll know true freedom, because we're not going to stop. If Kansas City wins again, it's going to get worse. And if they win the Super Bowl again, it's going to get even worse than that. So buckle in. Maybe grow some thicker skin, and it's okay for this to happen. Who else gets a ton of calls, Brad? North Dakota State, and they've won 10 titles in 14 years. Like, it is a byproduct sometimes of being the best team, is that the optics of it aren't great. There are the ones like where Mahomes again hits the ground and the Texans guys hit each other. That's not a penalty. It should never be a penalty. And I also don't think that the Houston Texans are going to win that game if Will Anderson Jr. lowers his strike zone to his midsection, or if there is no 15-yard penalty on that play, because the Chiefs have shown me over the course of the last 6 years that they just show up and win the game when it counts.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people. CJ Stroud, great game. At 19 to 28, 245, 65.7 QBR, 95.1 pass rating. I thought he was good. People are like, this is a 90th percentile CJ Stroud game. I'm like, I'm sorry. That offensive line was horrible, but you could not take half of the sacks he took. I mean, that was slow processing and slow decision making. And I'll say this: now that the book is closed on the sophomore season, the CJ Stroud, Tyson, this is what the concerns were coming out of Ohio State. And it was a great rookie season, like one of the best we've ever seen. People are talking about him as a top 10 quarterback, top 5 quarterback, I heard. Best rookie season we've ever seen. And it was really impressive, really good. You can't take that away from him. But this is what we were talking about coming out of Ohio State. The processing speed has been a little bit slow. If you're not hitting outside the numbers, which he showed at times at Ohio State you can't do, then you get limited, right? He's great in the middle of the field. You can take that away in the NFL. That's easy to do. The NFL defenders can do that. They're so fast. We're gonna have to see a leap, man. I mean, it's hard to say you got to go back to what you were doing, where else you're bad. Nobody's saying that here on the show, but the way that he was talked about after his rookie season compared to what he showed this year, it's a gap, right? Like, the guy was incredible his rookie season. This year he took a step back. That's fine. But next year, if the Texans are truly going to be able to compete in these games against the Mahomes, I think the Texans would have lost to the Bills. I think they probably would have lost to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. The quarterback's got to take the next step. And so we'll see. Like, he's only a second-year guy, but I think it was a little bit eye-opening to see kind of how it culminated in the sophomore season, C.J. Stroud. The stuff that we were talking about coming out of college really rear its head.
Yeah, and I mean, it's Steve Spade. He was great against the Chargers. I mean, and so that's like one of those things where he learned. But it was like we said this at the beginning of the season, where it feels like the Houston Texans are trying to go all in a season that they can't win the Super Bowl. And obviously they had injuries and stuff, and we're not going to know how that would have played out. But you push your chips to the middle and you live with the results. This is another, like, the Texans have never even been past this divisional round. It's almost organizational at this point, and CJ does have to be better for sure. But second-year quarterback, 2 divisional appearances under his belt, some playoff wins. Those are all really good things. And the last thing for me on the Texans, dude, what the happened to Joe Mixon? Over the course of the last 8 weeks, he started this game and I was like, oh, that's the guy who scored 3 touchdowns on Monday night. This is going to be fun. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh no, that's the guy from week 16.
I just ran out of gas, right? I think the workhorse thing, they should have played Pierce more. Just
had to.
I mean, the guy, the Bengals let him out of the building for a reason. And you kind of got to know that. And it's like, is he running out of gas? And it looked so good early on. But it's 17 games and it's a running back and he's aging. Probably wanted to play Pierce more. So we'll see what happens next year. But you were kind of a little hard on Bobby Slowick. I thought you want to talk about fall from grace compared to year over year. Oh boy.
Yeah, he wasn't great. He had some moments though in that game where I was like, oh, he pulled one over on Spags, and that's great. And at the end of the day, if you're a Texans fan and you're upset about the loss and you think we're piling on, you have a second-year quarterback that has taken you as far as anybody else in the history of your franchise has taken you. You have a true alpha number 1 wide receiver and a really good defense. And so those are things that are going to get cleaned up. I will say when DeMeco came out of the tunnel and they were like, how do you get back in this game? And he goes, we're just going to play Houston Texans football. I was like, oh, they're done. They're done. This is not going to work.
That is funny. And if you're mad at what we're saying here too, We were the ones who were excited about the Texans going up and getting Will Anderson. Everybody was piling on you guys. We said it was smart. I mean, come on, it's just ridiculous. So, let us know what you think, though. If you're hating on us, we want to know the criticism. But let's move on to here because it went from one just best rookie season we've ever seen to the best rookie season we've ever seen from 𝐮𝐻𝐻 Daniels, and that's kind of where we're at here. They take out the Lions 45-31. Tyson, you know the old saying, "You're on borrowed time." I hate to say it, but that was the Lions, man. That defense was an infirmary at the end. I mean, then you got Robertson who broke his arm. It looked like he broke his freaking bicep, dude. That was nasty. I think it was like a humerus thing or a humerus injury. I don't know, but that was gross. But you lose just another guy, and it was like, well, they're kind of done. And that's how it played out. They could not do anything. I know people are like, Aaron Glenn's going to get a head coaching job. I mean, listen, dude, you look at that depth chart and who is in, who is out. I mean, it's scary. There's like red lines through the two deep. Like you got guys you've never heard of running out back there. So the offense wasn't good enough to keep up with them, right? I mean, at a certain point, and when you're turning the ball over, Goff had 3 picks and they had that asinine trick play call that I think Ben Johnson kind of just threw in the towel. You're not going to win the game when your defense is getting shredded up this way. And that's ultimately what it came down to.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Commanders, I think, but we'll lead with Detroit. It's a crappy way to end the best season that they've ever had, but again, it, like you said, it kind of felt like it was coming. That last stand against the Vikings to steal the one, or not steal the 1 seed, but to earn the 1 seed that you rightfully got throughout the rest of the regular season was like, it made all of us think, okay, there's a shot that this team can actually get through the NFC and at least appear in a Super Bowl, which would have been huge. It would have been awesome. But that's not the way it worked out. Everybody died, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way, nobody's healthy in January, and nobody in the Lions was healthy at all. But that's like a reason that they lost the game. But it's not the reason they lost the game. There was a couple of them. I thought that Ben Johnson refusing to run the football after Jahmyr Gibbs is averaging like 8 yards a carry was crazy. It was asinine. He should have got the ball every play when it became clear that this wasn't Goff's night. And this is people are going to say, this might be the ceiling with Jared Goff. And A, that's factually incorrect because they went farther a year ago with him. But B, it also might be a little bit true because we haven't seen this guy show up. Yes, he played in a Super Bowl and had one of the worst performances we've ever seen in a Super Bowl. And he was going against Bill Belichick, and that's fine. But this was another moment that he came up a little bit small. And I don't want to hear anybody in the country, in the world, getting on Jameson Williams for throwing the interception, because why are you calling a trick play to the guy that we know in the entire NFL might be the worst decision maker? Like every receiver is going to let that thing fly. There's probably like 6 of them that are throwing it out of bounds anyways. And then you're going with a guy that has shown you time over. He's dry humping the ground 15 minutes before that. Like crazy. Like this is, what are you doing? I thought that, Aaron Glenn's getting a ton of hate. He had to simulate as much pressure as he could because that's the way the chips fell. But Ben Johnson wasn't great in this game. And sure, he's getting a little bit of hate, but you can point the finger at him as much as everybody else, I think, in this Detroit organization.
Yeah, and on the Jared Goff thing, I'm a big defender of Jared Goff. And I think he gets a lot of unrightful hate because I think he's a really good quarterback. Is he Mahomes? Is he Stafford? The comp is always 2, right? Because they were traded for one another. No, he's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's going to be J.D. Daniels, based on what he's shown. Is he C.J. Stroud? No. Jalen Hurts? No. Go down the list, but he is better than half the quarterbacks in the NFL.
At least.
And he's serviceable. He gets you to the playoffs. He's a great leader. He's a great guy to have in the locker room. But there is a ceiling. And is the ceiling with this roster and this play caller blowing the lead in the NFC Championship game and probably should be playing for a Super Bowl? Is it this where it's the 3 interceptions? He may have been concussed too. Let's
let's call
that
a spade a spade. Like that, this whole thing, like Frankie Louvu. What are you doing, dude? This is like the second or third quarterback this season that you've tried to knock out of the game. Everybody can see it. We all know. And look, there is something to be said about that. And I don't want to pin the whole thing on the concussion, but everything changed after, like, Teddy Bridgewater comes in, and sure, they scored a touchdown on a crazy reverse. I'm not giving Teddy the credit for that drive. But Goff comes back in, and he's making throws that I haven't seen Jared Goff make consistently this season. I thought he did a heck of a lot better job outside of that Texans game taking care of the football. And then it became like, oh, he's a step late on some of these things, and Mike Sanders still standing right there for the pick.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking that too. I'm like, man, he is, because the one thing you can say about Goff is he's super accurate, and he's top for sure. But he's super accurate. It was like, ooh, I don't. He's not being accurate right now. I don't know if he's just not seeing it or if he's a little cloudy up there. Like that was something. But like kind of not being tongue in cheek anymore about it. It's just another thing, another feather in a negative way in the cap of Jared Goff when it comes to these big games, when it comes to getting to the moment, And I know, and here's the thing that I always find a little bit funny is everybody defends Lamar Jackson for his failures, and I don't want to rehash this, but nobody wants to give any credit to Goff. This guy been to the Super Bowl. He's been to the NFC Championship game.
How many MVPs Goff have?
Right, and that's kind of the funny thing here. So they kind of close on that. I know you want to get into the Commanders. We're going to do a preview on them, obviously, because they're still playing. But Jaden Daniels, I mean, what else can you say about this kid? He's just been so special, so good. Now, I think, the moment for a rookie to do this on the road against the number one team, that is great on paper. Tyson, he's playing insurance salesman. So I'm not giving him too much credit here because that defense was, like I said, I'm going to use it again, an infirmary. This is how many people they had out. But he just continues to impress. And to have the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game, this freaking franchise, as a rookie, it just points to how good he's been. And I don't think we can mention the Commanders without saying Dan Quinn. He is pushing the right buttons. This defense is not very good. And sure, he's in charge of that. But, I mean, it's a bunch of veteran guys. They got to figure some stuff out. They were good enough in this game. I don't know if they're going to be good enough next week. But his ability to say, let's just freaking not be scared. Let's go for it. Fourth downs, we know we got the guy. Let's be aggressive. Everybody's on the same page. And that's the right thing. If people are second-guessing those decisions, they oftentimes don't work. When everybody's bought into it, that's when you see it's like, oh, it's just another down, and you operate in that way. You're not tight, and you're not like, oh, we got to do this. So I think you got to give him a ton of credit.
Yeah, I think he deserves a ton of love. I mean, it's basically a brand new roster that they had a year ago, and we just did a college football show, but it feels a little NIL-esque where it's like, man, none of you guys were even around for some of these bad times people keep pointing at. But they come downhill, and they just go. And I think that there's something to be said about that. They're standing here with the other 14 or the 3 teams left here in the NFL's Final Four. I watched so much Jaden Daniels in college, man, and it just hurts to know that I can count on one hand the amount of big games that he won at LSU, and I can almost get through 5 fingers of the big games that he's won so far in his NFL career. This might be a bigger indictment on Brian Kelly than anything anybody's put online.
Oh boy, BK catching a stray from Tyson. I think we're in trouble. So you got to tune into our college stuff as we get ready for next season. But let's put a bow on that. Let's get to our Eagles. They win a thriller against the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams had a chance to come back, win that. That would have been the worst loss that I think you can have in a long time for the Eagles. I mean, the Bucs game, when the last game in the vet, that's up there. I think the Super Bowl against the Chiefs was up there. There's a few others. The Rams game, NFC Championship, or I'm sorry,
NFC Championship against Arizona.
Jake Delhomme, that Panthers team. Like, there's been a few scary ones or ones that haunt Eagles fans. This one would have been up there because Saquon Barkley, we thought he walked it off, right? Like, we thought Mariano Rivera came in, shut the door.
Rico's fault.
He jinxed it. But that's what the feeling was in the building. And all of a sudden, it was a quick score from the Rams. Eagles kind of just sit back. We're like, we're not going to give up any big plays. Well, can't do that for Stafford because he's slicing and dicing. And then they can't get the first down, yada, yada. Eagles win the game. They are back in the NFC Championship game, Tyson. And I'm not going to go in a full rant about Sirianni, all this stuff. We were right about this Eagles team. This team is really good. Jalen Hurts continues to get hate while he went 15 for 20, 128, no touchdowns. Or I'm sorry, no turnovers. He had the rushing touchdown, 7 for 70. His stat line looks low. Like, I don't know, Mahomes and Josh Allen. Why are they getting on praise and just Jalen Hurts getting hate? Now, he gets hurt. We'll talk about that. But I thought this was a gutty win for the Eagles. In that environment, in that situation, guys going down left and right, and they are once again in the NFC Championship game. They're 8th since we've been alive, Tyson. I mean, it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it's insane. We're super spoiled as Eagles fans, and don't let any Delco mouth breathers tell you otherwise. It's almost like a golden age here for the last 25, basically since Jeffrey Lurie bought the team. The entire perception has switched. They just got to 500, postseason and regular season combined. And this is a team that's been consistently winning football games now for 25 years. So that should tell you a little something about where they were and where they are now. As far as the way this game played out, this is like, what are we doing here? Did people forget that there was a half of football on a normal football field, and then there was a half of football covered in snow, wind, ice, and it was horrible conditions? Any other, part of it is because people hate the Eagles, and and that's fine. I hate the Eagles most weeks too, but like any other team wins this game, and it's like, wow, I can't believe they pulled it out, and that's awesome. But Brad, the biggest thing to me, and this might be a little bit too Eagles fans-esque for a lot of our audience, but Philadelphia lost the game this season to the Atlanta Falcons on a drop pass. And then they lost the game to the Washington Commanders on a drop pass. And the Eagles didn't drop a pass in this game, but they failed to get a first down after the defense had allowed a touchdown. And then Matthew Stafford comes back out on the field, and it's like, oh no, here we go again. This was a resilient defensive effort to make sure that didn't happen again for the third time. And the other thing that I'll say, and I was going to say it on our college football show earlier too with Ohio State, because there's a little bit of talk about that. The issue isn't the last drive of the game as far as prevent defense goes. The issue is the drive before the last drive of the game when you really start getting into that prevent, because the goal is to let's take 3 minutes off the clock. We know they're going to score a touchdown. But when they pick up those chunks and they score in a minute and 20 seconds, now you've just thrown the whole thing out of whack. And that's kind of what happened here in Philadelphia. Another game where Jalen Carter just said, you know what, I'm the best player on the field, and I'm going to go out here and win this football game. He started the game with the sack of Matthew Stafford. He ended the game with the sack of Matthew Stafford. This is who the Philadelphia Eagles are. And if you want to go watch Lamar Jackson throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and some of these other, Joe Burrow throw for 500 yards, that's great. They are sitting at home, because the Philadelphia Eagles don't play the way that you want them to play, and they don't come out here, and it's not aesthetically pleasing to all of you guys born post-2000. But this is what football is. We're strapping the helmets on. We have better interior players than you do, and we're going to go win the game that way. And just because they play in a different style than we're used to seeing from these successful teams doesn't mean that it's any less effective. Because, Brad, they win this game in a nail biter. The Rams are tough as hell. That's one thing that's lost with this Sean McVay and them being in LA. McVay's pretty, and he has the gel in his hair and all this stuff. They are always showing up to play ball. Like, they are tough as it gets. They are always in every game. There's a reason that, like, when the Rams go to the wild card game, you can almost pencil them into that divisional round, because they are going to beat somebody, because they are ready for the moment. But what the Philadelphia Eagles were able to do was just play their game. And if A.J. Brown catches a 30-yard touchdown pass, if Devontae Smith isn't hitting the head on a 45-yard pass, we're talking about Jalen Hurts has 250 yards passing in a blizzard, and look at how good this football team is. None of that matters, because Saquon Barkley had 205 yards, he had 2 touchdowns, and the defense showed up when it mattered. The Los Angeles Rams, man, what a performance, what a gutsy. Jared Verse was talking smack about the Eagles fans before. I promise you, the only people that hate him right now are online. There is not a single Philadelphia Eagles fan that doesn't respect what he showed up and did. And that was a really good team in the Rams there. And it's not lost on me that Matthew Stafford, and I said this to you before the show, he's the greatest comeback quarterback I've ever seen. And so when he gets the football with a minute left, it's like, well, he's going to go score. It would have been his 60th one of his career. This is what he does. So every playoffs, we talk about the team that runs the football and plays defense is going to win the Super Bowl, until it's this football team that's doing it and people don't like the way it looks.
No, a lot to unpack there, and I agree with a lot of it. And from the Rams' perspective, because we've been pretty Eagle-centric, and we have another Eagles pod that we do, so we try not to be too, this is what we think on the Eagles, because we know this is more of a national show. This is a really good Rams team. They're 10-7. They're better than that. They had a ton of injuries. They had to get hot at the right time. They started 1-4. They got healthy. Higbee was back, and they got an offensive lineman back. And their young defensive line really matured and grew into it. I think this was a game that I think any Eagles fan, any rational Eagles fan, looked at this as like, this could be a game that they lose. And early on, Tyson, you never really thought that the Eagles were going to lose this game. And that's a testament to how good this Eagles team is. And I know people are criticizing the quarterback and yada, yada, and everything you went through. But we talked about the other teams and the other games this divisional round. This is how the Baltimore Ravens should have played. Hand the ball off to your star running back 26 times And he's probably going to run for 200 like Saquon Barkley did. He's probably going to run for 2 touchdowns like Saquon Barkley did. Have your quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Oh, it doesn't look good. 15 of 20, 128, just glorified running back. I'm sorry. I like to win football games. I like my teams to win football games. And I know people are like, well, winning this and that. There's a lot of coaches who get fired every year because they don't win enough games. And we are talking about this Eagles team. We're talking about this head coach who's in 2 NFC Championship games out of his, 4 years? 2 out of 4, 50%. It's impressive.
Statues for less than that.
It's hard to do. And Saquon Barkley made history. First time that ever that as somebody who ran for 200 yards against an opponent, ran for 200 yards when facing that same opponent in the playoffs. It was just a dominant fashion. The defense got banged up. They came through at the right time. Jalen Hurts had turnovers, sacks, whatever was needed. They did that. And this is the same unit last year that we're like running out of town, that everybody wanted to run out of town. People were cussing. People said sucked. This and that. It's a complete different mindset. They are in the right direction. This was a big test. Like you said, the Rams play physical. Sean McVay, everybody talks about, the offense, this and that. They win in the trenches. They want to run the football. They want to beat you up. Eagles didn't get beat up this game. And they delivered some punishment of their own. They did that in the trenches. If you don't like it, well, then you just don't like physical football. You like fantasy football. You like Madden. That's not how the Eagles play. And they've been successful under this head coach playing this way. And that's what they did in this game. And that's why they're playing against the Commanders in the championship game.
And I think that if anything sinks the Philadelphia Eagles, it's not going to be the pass game, folks. It's going to be kicking extra points because that, again, was another issue. Jake Elliott misses 2. He's like 22 of 22, I think, in his career in the postseason on field goals. But these extra points, he misses quite a few of them, and he's had a horrible year. But when the details matter, that's something that, you sit here and you go, dang, like, not just the AJ drops or some of these other things that didn't go their way during that football game, but Jake makes those 2 extra points, and then all of a sudden it's a completely different vibe on that last drive. You got to score and get the 2-point conversion. But yeah, I'm a little bit, and we're Eagles fans, so of course I'm biased, but I am getting a little sick of, we're going to use the same metric that we place on everybody else to judge this team, even though they're playing differently than everybody else. Jalen Hurts has won the last 14 games he started and finished. What else do you need? What else? What is the name of the game? Just because he goes to the interview and he's a dick to the reporters because he doesn't want to answer your questions doesn't mean that all of a sudden this guy's the worst and blah, 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 blah. He's not accessible, and that's okay. He doesn't. You don't know him in real life, and we don't need to know him in real life because a year ago, when they beat the Buffalo Bills in overtime and he has 5 touchdowns and accounts for 500 yards, that wasn't the story. The story is like this Philadelphia Eagles team is failing. Jalen Hurts is carrying this team to 11 wins. We're not that far removed. Like, the player's still in there. That's all I'm trying to say is that, like, when the situation calls for it, he can do it. But when the situation doesn't, he doesn't have to. We're praising Josh Allen for the same thing, and rightfully so. But you got to do it there. Pat Mahomes threw for 170 yards. 100 of those were to Kelsey. But when he does it, it's okay.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And so we'll do a ton of preview stuff. Tyson had to get that off his chest. We're going to be breaking down film next week, not necessarily on the screen, but talking about how we think they're going to win. So that's why you got to like, subscribe, and share the show. Stay subscribed because we got a ton of content coming out for you this week. We know we were off last week. We got you covered. We got our bets. We got only freaking 3 more games that we can bet on for the rest of the year in the NFL. It's crazy. But like on the way out, if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button, 5 stars if you haven't already in the podcast. And then share the show with a friend, with an enemy, however you want to do it. But we do appreciate the support. Like I said, we'll be back talking about these games itself. If we're doing a gambling episode later in the week, we'll try to find some stuff on the conference championship weekend. As we get the sharp lines on that stuff, we'll try to figure out a way to get some money down. So until then, guys, peace.